My name is Inez Sanchez. I'm 57 years old, and this is the story I kept silent for too long, not out of shame, but because speaking it aloud still makes my hands shake. That April evening, while I was celebrating what should have been one of the happiest birthdays of my life, I discovered that the person I loved most in this world had been planning to erase me, not with violence, not with words, but with a signature on a fraudulent medical report that would declare me mentally incompetent and lock me away in a psychiatric facility. The betrayal didn't come from a stranger. It came from my son. I remember the cake, a simple vanilla cake with buttercream frosting, the kind Daniel used to ask for when he was 7 years old. I'd baked it myself that morning, humming in the kitchen, unaware that by sunset, my entire world would split open. The house smelled like sugar and hope. I wore my mother's pearl earrings, the ones she'd given me before she died, whispering, "These will remind you that you are stronger than you think." I didn't know how much I'd need that strength just a few hours later. Daniel arrived late, as usual. He was 32, handsome in that careless way men are, when they've never had to fight for anything. His suit was expensive, too expensive for the accounting job he claimed to have. But I didn't ask questions. I was his mother. I wanted to believe the best. We sat at the dining table, just the two of us. His father had passed 6 years earlier, leaving me the house, some savings, and a small life insurance policy. Nothing extravagant, just enough to live with dignity. Daniel smiled at me across the table, raised his glass of cheap wine, and said, "To you, Mom. You deserve the world." I believed him. Then his phone vibrated on the table. Once, twice. He glanced at it, and something flickered across his face, something cold, something quick. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway. I heard his voice, low and tense, but I couldn't make out the words. When he came back, he'd left his phone on the kitchen counter. And that's when everything changed. It vibrated again. I wasn't trying to invade his privacy, I swear I wasn't, but the screen lit up and I saw it. A message from someone named Dr. Patel. It read, "Got the report. You can proceed with the commitment. Call me tomorrow." My heart stopped. I opened the message thread. My fingers were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. There were dozens of messages, plans, timelines, and then an image, a psychiatric evaluation report, with my name on it, diagnoses I'd never heard of, symptoms I'd never experienced, a doctor's signature I didn't recognize. The document declared me a danger to myself. It recommended immediate involuntary commitment to a long-term care facility. I felt the air leave my lungs. "Mom?" Daniel's voice came from behind me. I turned. He was standing in the doorway, staring at me holding his phone. His face went pale. Then it went hard. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice tight. I couldn't speak. I just held up the phone, my hand trembling, the screen glowing between us like evidence in a courtroom. He stepped forward. "Mom, it's not what you think." But I knew. God help me, I knew. Sometimes we trust people we shouldn't. Have you ever been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. That night, I realized one birthday could destroy a family. But what I didn't know yet was that it could also save a life. Mine. Because 2 hours later, the police knocked on my door. Let me take you back. Before that night. Before the lies. Before I understood what my son had become. There was a time when Daniel was my whole world. And I was his. I need you to understand that, because what came later makes no sense without knowing what we once had. He was born on a rainy October morning in 1993. The nurses said he came out screaming, fists clenched, ready to fight the world. I held him against my chest and felt something I'd never felt before, a love so enormous it terrified me. His father, Miguel, stood beside the hospital bed, crying openly, touching Daniel's tiny fingers with reverence. "He's perfect," Miguel whispered. "Our miracle." And he was. For so many years, he was. I remember our Sunday mornings. I'd make pancakes, always with chocolate chips hidden inside, and Daniel would sit at the kitchen table doing his homework, asking me questions about history, about science, about God. He was curious about everything. He wanted to be a doctor once, then an astronaut, then a teacher like his grandfather. "Mom," he'd say, looking up at me with those bright brown eyes, "when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a big house with a garden. You can plant all the roses you want. I'd laugh and kiss the top of his head. I don't need a big house, mijo. I just need you to be happy. Those were the good years. The years when I still believed motherhood was enough to protect him from the world. The years before I learned that sometimes the world gets inside a child and changes them in ways you can't see until it's too late. Miguel died when Daniel was 26. A heart attack. Sudden. Brutal. Unfair. One moment we were planning our 30th wedding anniversary trip to Mexico. The next, I was standing in a funeral home, choosing a casket, my hands clutching my mother's pearl earrings for strength. Daniel took it hard. He'd always been close to his father. After the funeral, he stopped calling as often, stopped visiting on Sundays. He said he was busy with work, with his career, with building his future. I understood. Grief makes people pull away. I gave him space. But looking back now, I wonder if that's when it started. The distance, the coldness, the slow, invisible transformation of my son into someone I no longer recognized. The house Miguel left me was modest, but paid off. A 2-bedroom ranch in a quiet neighborhood with oak trees lining the street. The life insurance policy wasn't much, $60,000, but it was enough to make me feel secure. I didn't need extravagance. I needed peace. I started a small garden in the backyard, just like Daniel had once imagined for me. Roses, tulips, lavender. I'd spend my mornings out there, digging in the soil, talking to Miguel's memory. I felt him there sometimes, in the warmth of the sun on my shoulders, in the way the wind moved through the leaves. I thought I was healing. I thought Daniel was healing too. He'd come by every few weeks, always asking how I was doing, always seeming concerned. "Mom, are you eating enough? Are you sleeping okay? You seem tired." I thought it was love. I thought he was worried about me the way I'd always worried about him. I didn't see it for what it was. Reconnaissance. He was studying me, watching for weaknesses, building a case. As I tell you this, I wonder where you're listening from. Write your city below so I can feel a little closer to you. 6 months before my 57th birthday, Daniel started visiting more often. He'd bring takeout, Chinese food, pizza, things I didn't have to cook. He'd sit with me in the living room, asking questions. How was I feeling? Was I forgetting things? Did I ever feel confused? Anxious? "I'm fine, mijo," I'd say, laughing. "I'm only 56. I'm not falling apart yet." But he'd look at me with this strange concern, this theatrical worry. "You just seem different, Mom. I want to make sure you're okay." I thought he loved me. I thought I was blessed to have a son who cared so much. Now I know he was planting seeds, preparing witnesses, creating a narrative. The night before my birthday, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, touching the pearl earrings on my nightstand. I thought about Miguel, about all the dreams we'd had, about how much I missed him. And I thought about Daniel, about how proud Miguel would be of the man our son had become. How wrong I was. The next evening, I baked that vanilla cake. I lit 57 candles, one for each year I'd survived, each year I'd loved, each year I'd tried to be enough. But that night, something happened that changed everything. There were signs. God forgive me. There were signs everywhere, and I ignored every single one. I want to tell you about them now, not to punish myself, but because maybe, just maybe, someone listening will recognize these same patterns in their own life and act before it's too late. That's all I can hope for, that my blindness might somehow protect someone else. It started small, so small I convinced myself it was nothing. 3 months before my birthday, Daniel brought over a woman named Patricia. He introduced her as a family friend who works in elder care. She was maybe 40, with kind eyes and a professional smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. "Mom, Patricia specializes in helping families plan for the future," Daniel said, settling onto my couch like he owned it. "I thought it would be good for you to hear about some options. You know, for when you get older." I was 56. I was healthy. I walked 3 miles every morning. I volunteered at the church twice a week. I cooked, cleaned, managed my own finances, paid my own bills. But I smiled politely because that's what mothers do. We don't want to embarrass our children. Patricia asked me questions, gentle questions that felt like concern. Did I ever forget appointments? Did I ever feel overwhelmed managing the house alone? Had I thought about what would happen if I got sick? I'm fine, I kept saying. Really, I'm fine. But she wrote things down in a little notebook, and Daniel watched me carefully, nodding whenever I paused to think, as if my normal human hesitation was evidence of something sinister. After they left, I found the pamphlet on my coffee table. Assisted living facilities, peace of mind for you and your family. I threw it away, laughing to myself. Ridiculous. I didn't need assisted living. I needed my son to stop treating me like I was 80 years old. But the seed was planted, and Daniel kept watering it. 2 weeks later, he came over with groceries I hadn't asked for. He opened my refrigerator and made a show of looking concerned. Mom, this milk expired 3 days ago, and these eggs, when did you buy these? I looked. The milk was fine. The date was the sell-by date, not the expiration date. The eggs were less than a week old. Daniel, I'm not senile, I said, trying to keep my voice light. I know how to check dates. He put his hand on my shoulder, that terrible, patronizing touch. I know, Mom. I'm just worried. You're alone here. What if something happens? What happens? What do you think is going to happen to me? He didn't answer. He just looked at me with this sad expression, like I was already lost. After he left, I stood in my kitchen for a long time, staring at that milk carton, feeling something dark and uncertain creeping into my chest. Was I forgetting things? Was I losing track? I touched my mother's pearl earrings, still in my ears, and felt foolish for doubting myself. The next incident was worse. Daniel called me one Tuesday afternoon. I was in the garden, pruning roses, my hands covered in soil. I almost didn't hear the phone. Mom, I've been calling you for an hour, he said, his voice tight with what sounded like fear. Where were you? I was in the garden, mijo. I didn't hear the phone. An hour, Mom. I called 15 times. I was about to call the police. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls. Not 15. 3. Daniel, it shows 3 calls. You're not seeing them all. Mom, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're missing calls. You're not aware of time passing. This isn't normal. I felt my stomach drop. Was he right? Had I lost track of time? I looked at my watch. I'd been in the garden for 45 minutes. Not hours, not days, less than an hour. But I didn't argue. Because by then, a small voice in my head had started whispering, what if he's right? What if something is wrong with you? That's how it works. The gaslighting, the slow erosion of your reality. They make you doubt your own eyes, your own memory, your own truth. I started second-guessing everything. Did I take my vitamins this morning? Did I lock the door? Did I turn off the stove? Simple tasks I'd done for 40 years suddenly felt uncertain, slippery, dangerous. Daniel started showing up unannounced. Just checking on you, Mom. He'd walk through the house like an inspector, looking for evidence of my decline. A dish in the sink became proof I was overwhelmed. A light left on became proof I was forgetful. Maybe you should think about getting some help, he'd say. Someone to come by a few times a week, just to make sure you're okay. I don't need help, Daniel. Mom, please. I'm worried about you. Dad would want me to take care of you. And there it was. The weapon he knew would cut deepest. Miguel, my husband, the man who'd loved me with his whole heart. Daniel was using his father's memory to manipulate me. I should have seen it then. I should have asked questions. Why was he so insistent? Why was he so desperate to prove I was failing? But I didn't, because he was my son, and I wanted to believe love was still there, buried underneath whatever had changed him. The week before my birthday, Daniel brought up the house. Mom, have you thought about selling this place? It's too big for one person. You could move into something smaller, easier to manage. I could help you find a nice condo. The house Miguel built, the house where we'd raised our son, the house with the garden I'd planted with my own hands. I'm not selling, Daniel. His jaw tightened. For just a second I saw something flash in his eyes, something cold and calculating. Then it was gone, replaced by that practiced concern. Okay, Mom, I understand. I just want what's best for you. But I heard what he didn't say. I want what's in this house. I want what you have. I want you gone. I still wonder if I did the right thing by not confronting him sooner. What about you? Have you ever sensed something was wrong, but convinced yourself you were imagining it? The night of my birthday, when I found that message on his phone, everything clicked into place. All those small moments, all those strange questions, all that manufactured concern. He wasn't trying to help me. He was trying to erase me. I stood there in my kitchen, holding my son's phone, staring at a document that declared me insane. A document that would have given him legal authority to lock me away, to take control of my house, my money, my life. And he was standing 10 feet away from me, watching. "Mom, give me the phone." His voice was low, controlled, the voice of someone who'd been caught but was already calculating his next move. I looked up at him. This man I'd carried in my body. This man I'd nursed through fevers and nightmares. This man whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose tears I'd dried, whose dreams I'd believed in. "Who is Dr. Patel?" My voice came out stronger than I expected. Daniel's face hardened. "You went through my phone. Answer the question. Who is Dr. Patel, and why does he have a psychiatric report with my name on it?" He stepped closer. For the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own child. Not physically afraid. He'd never raised a hand to me. But there was something in his eyes now, something empty, something that looked at me and saw not his mother, but an obstacle. "You wouldn't understand," he said finally. "This is for your own good." My own good? I felt something break open inside me, not just my heart, but something deeper, my trust, my faith in the goodness of the person I'd created. "You forged a psychiatric evaluation. You planned to have me committed. You were going to take everything from me." "Take everything?" He laughed, and the sound was ugly. "Mom, you have a house you can barely maintain and $60,000 that's sitting in a bank account doing nothing. You're wasting it. You're wasting your life, actually. Living here alone, talking to dead flowers, pretending Dad is still around. Someone needs to make decisions for you because clearly you can't." I felt the air leave the room. "I talk to his memory," I whispered. "I honor his memory. That's called love, Daniel. That's called grief. That's called being human. That's called being unstable." He reached for the phone, but I stepped back. "Dr. Patel is a real doctor. I told him about your behavior, the confusion, the memory problems, the isolation. He agreed you need professional evaluation. This is a preliminary assessment. We were going to do this the right way, Mom. We were going to help you." "We? Who's we?" He hesitated, just for a second, and I knew. "Patricia," I said, "that woman you brought here. She wasn't a family friend. She was part of this. She's a care coordinator. She helps families transition their elderly relatives into appropriate facilities." "Elderly?" I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I'm 57 years old. I walk 3 miles every morning. I volunteer. I cook. I clean. I pay my own bills. I'm not elderly, Daniel. I'm not confused. I'm not unstable. I'm just in your way." His face flushed red. "You don't understand what it's like, worrying about you, wondering if you're going to hurt yourself, wondering if I'm going to get a call one day that something happened." "Stop lying." My voice cracked. "This isn't about worry. This is about money, about this house, about getting control of what your father left me. Don't you dare dress this up as concern when what you're really doing is trying to steal from your own mother." The mask dropped. For just a moment, I saw the truth in his face. No concern, no love, just cold calculation, just greed. "You think you can prove that?" he said quietly. "You think anyone will believe you? I've been telling people for months that you're declining. I've documented everything. The expired milk, the missed calls. Patricia has notes from her visit. I have witnesses, Mom." "What do you have? A phone you went through without permission?" My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the device. He was right. He'd been so careful, so methodical. He'd built a narrative, created evidence, planted seeds in people's minds. If I told anyone what he'd done, I'd sound exactly like what he'd been claiming I was. Paranoid, confused, unstable. He'd trapped me perfectly. I thought about my mother's words, her fingers touching these pearl earrings. "You are stronger than you think." But was I? Was I strong enough to fight my own son? "Get out," I said. "Mom, get out of my house. Now." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled, a terrible, pitying smile. "I'm trying to help you. One day you'll understand that. One day you'll thank me." He walked to the door, paused, turned back. "Keep the phone if you want, it doesn't matter. This is happening, Mom. With your cooperation or without it. I'm your son. I'm your only family. The courts will side with me." Then he left. I stood in my kitchen, still holding his phone, the birthday cake untouched on the table. 57 candles melted into the frosting. The house was completely silent, except for the sound of my own breathing. I'd never felt so alone in my life. But here's what Daniel didn't know. I wasn't just a mother. I wasn't just a grieving widow. I was Miguel Sanchez's wife, and Miguel had taught me something important before he died. "Inez," he'd said, holding my hand in the hospital the day before his heart gave out, "if anyone ever tries to hurt you, don't just cry. Document everything. Keep records. Protect yourself. Promise me." I'd promised, and I'd kept that promise. I opened Daniel's phone and started taking screenshots. Every message, every email, every detail of his plan. I sent them all to my own email address. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in 6 years, Miguel's brother, Carlos, a retired attorney who lived 2 states away. "Carlos," I said when he answered, my voice surprisingly steady. "I need help. I need it now. My son is trying to have me committed so he can take my house." There was a pause. Then, "Inez, start from the beginning. Tell me everything." I did. And while I was telling him, sitting at my kitchen table, touching my mother's pearl earrings for strength, I heard a car pull up outside. Then another. Then the sound of footsteps on my porch. Then the knock. Heavy, official, authoritative. I opened the door. 2 police officers stood there, their expressions professional and unreadable. "Mrs. Sanchez," one of them said. "Yes? We received a call about a welfare check. Your son called. He said you were experiencing a mental health crisis and might be a danger to yourself. We need to ask you some questions." Behind me, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't let you hurt yourself. The police will help you." That's when I understood the full scope of his plan. He wasn't just going to have me committed quietly. He was going to use the police to do it. He was going to make sure there was an official record of my crisis. He was going to force me into an ambulance, into a hospital, into a system I couldn't escape. And standing there in my doorway, facing 2 police officers who'd been told I was unstable, I had one chance to prove I wasn't. One chance to save my own life. I want you to understand something about fear. Real fear doesn't make you scream or run. Real fear makes you very, very calm. It sharpens you. It makes every detail crystal clear. Standing in my doorway, facing 2 police officers who'd been told I was mentally unstable, I felt that clarity wash over me like cold water. "Mrs. Sanchez," the taller officer said, his voice gentle but firm. "Your son called us. He's concerned about your welfare. He says you've been acting confused, that you went through his personal belongings, and that you might be experiencing some kind of mental health episode. Can we come in and talk to you?" I could see how this would play out if I panicked, if I cried, if I got defensive or angry. They'd see exactly what Daniel had primed them to see, an unstable older woman having a breakdown. So I did the opposite. I touched my mother's pearl earrings, took a breath, and smiled. "Of course, officers. Please, come in. I've been expecting something like this." I stepped aside, my hands steady, my voice clear. "Would you like some coffee? I just made a fresh pot." They exchanged a glance. That wasn't the response they'd anticipated. "We're fine, ma'am," the shorter officer said, but I could see them both recalibrating, reassessing. I led them to my living room. The birthday cake sat on the dining table, candles melted, but still recognizable. The house was clean, organized, normal. I sat in my chair, Miguel's old reading chair, and folded my hands in my lap like I was about to discuss the weather. "My son's name is Daniel Sanchez," I began, my voice steady. "He's 32 years old. He called you because about an hour ago, I discovered he's been planning to have me involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility based on a fraudulent medical evaluation. He's trying to gain legal control of my assets, specifically this house and a $60,000 life insurance policy my late husband left me." The officers stared at me. "Ma'am, that's a serious accusation," the taller officer said. Yes, it is. And I have proof. I picked up my phone from the side table, not Daniel's phone, but my own, and pulled up the screenshots I'd sent myself. These are messages between my son and a Dr. Patel. They discuss a psychiatric evaluation report with my name on it, recommending immediate commitment. I've never met Dr. Patel. I've never been evaluated by him. I've never even been contacted by him. I handed the officer my phone. He scrolled through the images, his expression growing more serious with each one. He showed them to his partner. This message here, I pointed, says, "Got the report. You can proceed with the commitment." It's dated today, my birthday. I smiled, and I know it must have looked sad. That's why he came over tonight, not to celebrate with me, to set this in motion. The shorter officer spoke carefully. "Mrs. Sanchez, your son told us you've been experiencing memory problems, confusion, that you've been acting erratically. I'm sure he did. He's been building that narrative for 3 months." I stood and walked to my bookshelf, pulling out a folder I'd started keeping after Miguel died, because my husband had taught me to document everything. These are my medical records from my annual physical 6 weeks ago. Clean bill of health, no cognitive issues. My doctor's number is right here if you'd like to verify. I handed them the folder. These are my bank statements showing I manage my own finances without any errors. These are volunteer schedules from my church showing I've been reliably attending and coordinating events for 3 years. This is a letter from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, confirming I walk 3 miles every morning and maintain my property. I started gathering these documents 2 weeks ago when my son's behavior became suspicious. The taller officer looked at me with new eyes. "Why did his behavior make you suspicious?" "Because he kept insisting I was declining when I knew I wasn't. He kept visiting unannounced, looking for evidence of problems that didn't exist. He brought a woman named Patricia to my house who claimed to be a family friend but was actually a care coordinator for assisted living facilities. They were manufacturing a crisis." I sat back down, my hands still steady, though my heart was breaking. "Officers, I'm 57 years old. I'm healthy. I'm competent, and my son is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent so he can take control of my estate. That's called elder abuse. That's called fraud." The room was very quiet. "Ma'am," the shorter officer said carefully, "these are serious allegations. If what you're saying is true, call my brother-in-law, Carlos Sanchez. He's a retired attorney. I called him 20 minutes ago. He's already reviewing the case." I gave them Carlos's number. "Call my doctor, call my church, call my neighbors, interview anyone you want. You'll find I'm exactly who I say I am, a competent woman being targeted by her own son." The taller officer stepped outside to make a call. I could hear his voice, low and professional, requesting some kind of verification. The shorter officer stayed with me, watching me carefully. "Mrs. Sanchez," he said after a moment, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. How are you so calm right now?" I touched my mother's pearl earrings, because my husband prepared me for this. Before he died, he told me that if anyone ever tried to hurt me, even family, especially family, I should document everything and protect myself. I thought he was being paranoid. Turns out, he was being wise. The officer's expression softened. His partner came back inside. "I spoke with Dr. Patel's office. They have no record of evaluating an Inez Sanchez. The doctor says he was contacted by a Daniel Sanchez about a potential evaluation, but no official assessment was ever conducted. The document in those messages appears to be fraudulent." The air in the room changed. "I also spoke with her physician, Dr. Morrison," the taller officer continued. "She confirms Mrs. Sanchez was seen 6 weeks ago for a routine physical. No cognitive concerns, no mental health issues. Doctor describes her as sharp, engaged, and completely independent." They both looked at me with something like respect now. "Mrs. Sanchez, we're going to need to speak with your son," the taller officer said. "This is now a criminal matter. Forging medical documents, attempted fraud, elder abuse. These are serious charges." I nodded. Then I felt it. The thing I'd been holding back. The grief. Not for what Daniel had done, but for what I'd lost. Because in that moment I understood. My son was gone. The boy I'd raised, the child I'd loved, the person I thought he was, that person didn't exist. Maybe he never had. "Officers," I said, and my voice finally cracked, just a little. I need you to understand something. I don't want revenge. I don't want to destroy him. I just want him to stop. I want to be safe in my own home. I want to live the rest of my life without looking over my shoulder, wondering if my own child is trying to erase me. The shorter officer's eyes were kind. Ma'am, you did the right thing. You protected yourself, but it didn't feel right. It felt like the saddest thing I'd ever done. After they left, promising to investigate, to file reports, to contact Daniel, I sat alone in Miguel's chair, touching my mother's earrings, staring at the melted birthday cake, and I cried. Not because I was weak, but because I was strong enough to face the truth. My son had tried to steal my life, and I'd had to call the police on him to survive. What would you have done in my place? Would you have fought back, or would you have let love blind you until it was too late? 3 days later, Daniel was arrested. The charges were severe: fraud, forgery, attempted elder abuse, conspiracy. Dr. Patel lost his medical license for participating in the scheme. Patricia disappeared, and I was left standing in my house, free but utterly alone, holding on to my mother's pearl earrings and wondering how a love so pure could turn into something so dark. But the story doesn't end there, because karma, I've learned, keeps its own perfect accounts. Daniel's trial lasted 3 months. I didn't attend. Carlos, my brother-in-law, represented me. He called occasionally with updates. Evidence presented, witnesses called, Daniel's lawyer trying to claim it was all a misunderstanding. But the messages didn't lie. The forged documents didn't lie. Dr. Patel's confession didn't lie. My son was sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay restitution. 18 months for trying to erase his own mother. People asked if I felt vindicated. I didn't. I felt empty. The house became quieter than ever. I kept the garden. I kept my routines. I kept touching my mother's pearl earrings every morning, asking her spirit for strength. Some days I found it. Some days I didn't. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter. Prison stationery. Daniel's handwriting. Mom, I'm sorry. I made terrible choices. I was desperate. I had debts you didn't know about. Gambling debts. I thought if I could just access the house, the money, I could fix everything. I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't see another way. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he'd been caught. Years passed. I lived my life. I traveled, something Miguel and I had always planned to do. I saw Italy, Spain, Greece. I made new friends at church. I learned to be alone without being lonely. And then, 4 years after Daniel went to prison, I got a phone call. Mrs. Sanchez, this is Memorial Hospital. Your son has been admitted. He listed you as his emergency contact. My hands went cold. What happened? He collapsed at work. Stroke. He's stable now, but he's asking for you. I sat in my kitchen for an hour, staring at the phone. Part of me wanted to hang up and forget. Part of me, the mother part that never fully dies, needed to see him. I drove to the hospital. Daniel was in a bed by the window. He looked older than 36. His face was gray. His left side was paralyzed. When he saw me, tears filled his eyes. Mom, he whispered, you came. I sat in the chair beside his bed, my mother's pearl earrings catching the fluorescent light. I came. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. And here's the thing about karma. It doesn't need your anger. It doesn't need your revenge. It simply returns what was given. Daniel had tried to take my freedom, my home, my dignity. And now, at 36 years old, he'd lost his own freedom in a different way. His body had betrayed him the way he'd betrayed me. I didn't feel joy. I felt sadness. Deep, terrible sadness. I forgive you, I said. Not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. He cried. I destroyed everything. Yes, I said gently. You did. The doctors said he'd need extensive rehabilitation. He had no insurance, no savings. The gambling had taken everything. He'd lost his apartment, his job, his future. Mom, he whispered, his voice breaking. I have nobody else. I'm alone. I thought about telling him how that felt. How it felt when he'd tried to lock me away. How it felt when I realized my only child saw me as an obstacle instead of a person. But I didn't. Instead, I said, you made choices, Daniel. And choices have consequences. I hope you use this time to understand that. I stood to leave. Mom, please, don't leave me like this. I touched my mother's pearl earrings. I'm not leaving you. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. I walked out of that hospital room and I didn't look back. Life keeps its score. Always. I'm 61 years old now. 4 years have passed since that hospital visit. 4 years since I last saw Daniel. He sends letters sometimes. Short ones. He's in a rehabilitation facility. State-funded. Basic care. The stroke left him with permanent limitations. He can walk with a cane. He can speak, though the words come slowly. He works part-time at a grocery store, stocking shelves. He writes about regret, about understanding, finally, what he'd tried to take from me, about how losing his own independence taught him to value mine. I read the letters. Sometimes I respond, brief, kind, distant. I don't hate him. I don't love him the way I once did. What I feel is something quieter. Acceptance. He's a stranger who shares my blood, nothing more. People ask if I'm bitter. I'm not. Bitterness is just pain you refuse to release. I released mine the day I walked out of that hospital. My garden is beautiful now. Roses everywhere. Red, white, yellow. I sit there most mornings with my coffee, wearing my mother's pearl earrings, talking to Miguel's memory. Not because I'm confused or lost, but because love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes form. I've learned something these past years. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who see you, truly see you, and choose to stay. Mrs. Chen next door checks on me every day. Carlos calls every Sunday. My church community has become the family I choose. And I've learned this. Protecting yourself isn't cruelty. It's survival. It's grace. It's the most loving thing you can do. For yourself, and sometimes, even for the person you're protecting yourself from. If my son hadn't faced consequences, he'd still be that person. The one who saw people as transactions, who used love as a weapon. Maybe his suffering taught him something I couldn't. I hope it did. I truly do. Last week, I updated my will. Everything goes to charity, women's shelters, elder advocacy programs, organizations that protect people from the kind of abuse I survived. Daniel knows this. He didn't argue. I understand, Mom, he wrote. You're protecting others. That's who you've always been. Maybe he finally sees me. Or maybe he's just tired. Either way, I'm free. I touch my mother's pearl earrings every morning and remember what she told me. You are stronger than you think. She was right. I survived what should have broken me. I faced my own child in court. I chose peace over revenge. I chose myself. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, if someone you love is making you doubt your own mind, your own worth, your own reality, please hear me. You're not crazy. You're not imagining it. Trust yourself. Document everything. Protect yourself. Love shouldn't cost you your freedom. Family shouldn't cost you your sanity. And loyalty shouldn't mean letting someone destroy you. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and turn on the bell to hear more stories of women who turn pain into wisdom. Every day, one woman, one life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes, one story can change an entire day. My name is Inez Sanchez. I'm 61 years old. I survived my own son's betrayal, and I'm still here, still standing, still wearing my mother's pearl earrings, still choosing myself. God bless you, and see you next time.